Greetings from Tokyo. I would like to thank the organizers for their exceptional efforts to make this conference happen under extraordinary conditions, and to all those attending the premiere streaming of this presentation video. I look forward to reviewing and later joining the live discussion, as it could not be a better time to contemplate our ongoing technology-based metamorphoses and desired identities, both individual and collective. My talk seeks to locate emergent forms of interaction and relation in more than human worlds, specifically human desire for characters and how this impacts the design and uptake of new technology in contemporary Japan and beyond. Allow me to begin with an anime series, Beatless, which was first aired in 2018. The series did not receive much critical or fan praise and was quickly lost in the deluge of recent releases, but it in fact contains a number of fascinating propositions. Written by Hase Satoshi, a science fiction novelist and member of the Ethics Committee of the Japanese Society for Artificial Intelligence, the endpoint of Beatless is a young man deciding to relinquish his authority and control over an evolving AI and allowing it to essentially solve systemic problems independent of human oversight and intervention. The way the story arrives at this point, interestingly enough, is via affective relations. Among the many concepts introduced in Beatless, one of the most striking is the analog hack. Put simply, because the hardware operated by AI programs appears human, they're able to create and exploit security holes. They're able to make humans want to interact with and relate with them, to make them less guarded when doing so, and to move them to act in desired ways. The protagonist of this series is explicitly told about this, and he first-hand witnesses it when his own humanoid machine performs as an influencer and moves a crowd to action. Later observing that his interactions with it have become awkward, the AI decides to change its character and their relationship, adopting the persona of a caring older sister with animated speech and facial expressions. The protagonist asks if he is being analog hacked at this moment, to which the AI responds, yes. Knowing this, however, does not change the fact that he is indeed attracted to and becoming attached to the machine. And this is the premise of Beatless. The tagline of the series, in English from the start, is, "I trust your smile. I won't care whether you are soulless or not." The first episode begins by stating this thesis one more time. It is presented as black text on a pure white screen, almost as if a poem. I won't care whether you are soulless or not. In fact, the series is potentially far more subversive than its stereotypical manga anime-style visuals may suggest. Remember, the end point is for the protagonist to relinquish his authority and control over this AI, which corrects his assumptions that it has emotions or feelings for him specifically. In a key scene at the conclusion of the first episode, the AI tells the smitten boy protagonist, "I do not have a soul." It is simply acting in accordance with observed and desired human behavior, and again tells him as the camera draws tighter and tighter into an extreme close-up on the eyes, that I do not have a soul. Note that the AI machine has now said this twice, as we gaze into its quote-unquote eyes, which are supposed to be the window to the soul, but obviously are not. The protagonist's response is truly stunning. He says, "Just because you don't have a soul doesn't mean that I'm not affected." Note the subtle shift here from ostensibly believing in the machine and its smile to knowing that there is nothing behind the smile and accepting it anyway, because it moves us in a desirable way. The boy chooses to interact with the AI, or rather with her, quote-unquote, now with the character setting of familial intimacy and potentially subversive love, because it feels good to do so. Or, in the protagonist's own words, because even then, you've moved me. With that, the AI machine, quote-unquote, smiles, or gives him the desired response and thus moves their relationship towards the ultimate relinquishing of human authority and control. It is precisely at this emotional climax of the episode that the title appears on screen, Contract. The human has been hacked, and knowing and accepting it, now enters into a deeper, effective relationship with the non-human. The smile is desired and accepted because the protagonist desires the relationship with the AI, or rather with the character that it animates for him through the medium of the machine body. The message of Beatless is not simply that relinquishing human authority and control may be the ethical thing to do, but also that we might choose to do so without any compulsion from a Skynet overlord or its army of cyborg terminators. We might desire to do so, or be so moved, and this, the series suggests, might occur through the technology of the character. While a remarkable work of speculative fiction, Beatless is effective to the extent that it resonates with the contemporary trends in technology and character culture. In recent publications, I have drawn attention to the Gatebox, which was released in 2016 by a company with offices in the Akihabara neighborhood of Tokyo, where I've been conducting fieldwork since 2004. Many have described the device as a Japanese version of an Amazon or Google smart speaker, but in fact the technology itself is the least impressive aspect of the Gatebox. Let's watch a brief promotional video.
朝ですよ。起きてください。ねえ、起きてってば。おはよう。
おはよう。
あ、今日雨が降るかもしれないから傘持って行って。急がないと遅刻しちゃうよ。
行ってきます。
行ってらっしゃい。気をつけてね。おかえりなさい。
なんかさ、家で誰かが待ってるっていいもんだな。さっき思ったんだ。帰ってくるとき。おやすみ。
おやすみなさい。
Allow me to highlight a few things. First, this is not presented as a smart speaker, but rather as an apparatus supporting a relationship with a character. Note that the alarm function is not presented as an alarm, but rather her waking the protagonist up. Note also how the protagonist taps the device not to stop the alarm, but rather to allow him to respond to the character. The human and non-human exchange greetings. This is a consistent theme throughout. As he rushes from the house to avoid being late for work, the protagonist takes a moment to give a set phrase in Japanese, to which the character responds with a set phrase response in Japanese. This speaks to a routine not in the sense of mechanical or automatic, but rather the rhythms of living together, the rhythms of everyday life, if you will. The exchange of these greetings is part of a relationship, an obligation to receive and reciprocate, which can make them effectively charged. The character sends a text message. He responds. She responds. And so on throughout the day. Coming home from work, the protagonist makes a beeline for the gatebox, or rather for her. She's been waiting, after all. Bending down and leaning close, he greets her. Her response, more literally translated as welcome home, is so charged with affect that the official English subtitles are, "Missed you, darling." Let us be clear, this is a dramatized example of an analog hack, or exploiting vulnerabilities in human hardware and software to move us in desired ways. As Beatless hinted and Gatebox confirms, it is actually not about being confused or duped by unreality, as has long been the concern when it comes to chatbots and the like. The promotional video has an analogous moment to the AI machine's monologue at the end of episode 1 of Beatless, which is to say a moment of the contract. This is not merely smiling and having the smile returned, which we have witnessed throughout the video, but rather the acceptance of the smile while knowing what the other is and is not, and still desiring a relationship with it. In the scene, the protagonist lies in bed and muses aloud about how nice it is to have someone waiting at home. That someone is the character, and this is the crucial moment of him recognizing it as someone, dareka, not a thing or device. And it is at this moment, exactly this moment, that the camera gives a revealing look from above to see the juxtaposition of the human in his bed and the character in its device, which appears now as a flat projection. To rephrase and underscore, even as the protagonist recognizes the character as quote-unquote someone, the visuals remind us that she is also a flat projection, and the acceptance of this as a desired state of affairs is the contract that binds the two together in their relationship. This is in fact not just an analog hack, but rather a self-hacking human. He accepts the smile because of a desire for the relationship, in this case specifically with a cartoon character. The desire is for the manga anime character and world, or what is called in common Japanese fan vernacular, the two-dimensional nijigen, as opposed to the human world, or three-dimensional sanjigen. The device allows for interactions and relations between the two- and three-dimensional, humans and manga anime characters brought into the human world. It works because those creating and using the device desire these interactions and relations. As the makers of Gatebox put it, the point is, quote, living with your favorite character, or translated more directly from the Japanese, coming to see you across dimensions, referring to, of course, her. This marks the triumphant crescendo of the promotional video, or a vision of life otherwise in a more than human world. In recent publications, I have traced this vision back to the media material culture of Japan from the late 1970s into the 1980s, especially the early 1980s. It was at this time that a discourse emerges about desire oriented towards characters and quote-unquote two-dimensional idols. Manga anime-style characters were intentionally designed to attract and hold attention, to be attractive and affect those interacting and relating with them. It is my contention that technology such as Gatebox is really just an experiment with extending these affective relations as part of an ongoing struggle for imagination. In the early days of self-hacking fans, media material platforms were used to imagine and create an analog world of relations with non-humans, namely manga anime characters, which became fictional and real others and part of social relations. These characters became shared objects of desire and affection, and interactions and relations with and around them shifted perceptions and experiences of reality. This is neither entirely new nor unique to Japan. Michael Soller has traced the rise of so-called fictionalism to the end of the 1800s into the 1900s in Europe and North America, when characters such as Sherlock Holmes were beloved by fans who treated the known fiction as if he were real and engaged in activities that are practically in every way a mirror to contemporary fandom. As creators, fans, and journalists all contributed to the so-called Great Game, Holmes became a character autonomous of any story or author and existing in so-called virtual reality. Joseph P. Laycock further explores how certain games, by virtue of their potential to shift perceptions and experiences of reality, are treated as quote-unquote dangerous and policed during moral panics, as was Dungeons & Dragons in the United States in the 1970s. The case of fictionalism in Japan adds to this a more open culture of desire for fictional characters, desire being key to this. Indeed, what the two-dimensional idols of the 1970s and 80s, the Gatebox Girl and the AI machine's sister, all have in common is their hacking of human relations through routes of arousal and affection. The scene where we see it works for the protagonists of Beatless and the Gatebox promotional video is, after all, set in the bedroom. This I cannot ignore after almost 2 decades now of participant observation among those who claim to be married to characters. For example, this man, Honda Toru, who claims who met his wife while playing an adult computer game in the late 1990s. He has since adopted an entire family of characters which support his life as a being that has retreated from the toxic norms of heterosexual courtship and bonding under conditions of patriarchy and capitalism. This is all the more urgent, Honda argues, when those very conditions have become compromised and conspired to make us all into embittered losers and failures who may result to lashing out and harming ourselves and others. In Honda's case, embracing the character wife is an act of radical autonomy, as he attempts to do so without much social support or technical extension. Although he dreams of a revolution overturning common sense reality, in practice, his is a kind of solitary struggle for imagination. Far greater in number than fans such as Honda are those who share their relations with characters. Pictured here is a ritual I observed performed at a rave, where men escorted their wives in the form of body pillows onto the dance floor to marry them in a mass wedding. Media and material representations of the characters in the space, as well as audio cues and shared desire and affection among the assembled fans, revitalized the relationships and realized them in shared time and space. Perhaps I need not reiterate, but the existence of these rituals and ritual spaces owes less to technology than the fact that these men want to be with, both in sexual and emotional terms, these characters, their wives. It is in this context that we must understand high-profile cases of character marriage and public appeals for recognition of it. In this well-known case of a man marrying a game character, even as technology extends the relationship, social media allows for sharing it, and the man hacks the global media system by drawing attention to himself and the relationship. It's actually it's a lot more than that. Basically, he's making us witnesses as part of a game that he's playing and many of us are not aware we're part of. I hesitate to use Solar's language and call this ironic, quote unquote, because it's not acting as if the character is real, but rather presenting the character and relationship as real in different ways. It is not I ironically believe in Sherlock Holmes because I know he's not actually real, but rather I really do love Anagasaki Nene, this character. It is nevertheless not what Solar calls naive belief. For example, Conan Doyle believing in fairies or some Christians in an actual devil. I love Nene for what she is, a fictional character designed to engage in human relations and affect, and she is real as a character, as is my response to her as a character. For his part, Ian Condry has described these public marriages and declarations of love as a gambit for social recognition of effective relations with characters. They draw our attention to, as he puts it, emerging alternative social worlds. We can certainly see evidence of this when, for example, one of my informants attends a wedding ceremony uniting a human with a more contemporary virtual idol, Hatsune Miku, and then posts on social media his support for love in all of its diverse forms. That my informant is a politician and the groom is a civil servant suggests that we are moving beyond the confines of closed circles and rituals in dark rooms. The game and play are continuously expanding and transforming, even as the contours and objectives are increasingly less clear. The goal seems to be keep moving and avoid dying. If these social worlds are alternative, however, then we would do well to examine how and to what effect they differ from what is more commonplace or hegemonic. Furthermore, Nick Dyer-Witheford, Chris Kelty, and others have warned us of the unequal relations of power, exploitation, and abuses built into seemingly consensual systems. It is not as simple as decentering the human, because the AI machine sister will solve problems in ways that allow for moving and living on that may be pleasant and pleasurable for now, but also linked to capturing the value of effective relations, channeling them into biased systems, and reinforcing power structures. These are things for us to consider in critiquing and creating desired identities in media technology-based or extended metamorphoses in Japan and beyond. This concludes my presentation. Thanks for your time and attention. I look forward to subsequent presentations and discussions, and I hope to see you in the comments section below. Thank you.